Sorry about that. I am practicing with live streams. So, we are going to talk about the Islamic Renaissance. Let's start with the Islamic Golden Age of the 8th to the 13th centuries. At that time, the Islamic world was the leader in science and technology, had superb economy. It was, in many ways, the most productive in the world. The Islamic Golden Age ended in the 13th century with the invasion of the Mongol army. That was followed by the Timurid Renaissance of the 14th to the 16th centuries. That Renaissance is named after the Timurid Empire, which is named after Timur, the leader of that empire. And it's interesting that a Renaissance can be named after a great leader. That remains true today. The first country to start today's Islamic Renaissance could give its name to the new Renaissance. If you're a leader of an Islamic country, you could be remembered forever as being the person who started today's Islamic Renaissance. Now, the European Renaissance ran from the 15th to the 16th centuries. I'm a product of that Renaissance. I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm not Asian, I'm Caucasian, but I've met people from around 90% of the world's countries. I think I know how the Islamic world can have a Renaissance that surpasses the West. Let's start with money. I live in the United Kingdom. For every £1 we spend on research, we get back £8.50 in economic activity. We spend 2.8% of our GDP on research, and that returns 24% of our GDP. About 1/4 of our annual wealth comes from research. Now, why does this work? Think about it. You woke up this morning. You probably woke up in a modern building that was designed with the aid of a computer. The materials in your building were probably designed by the results of science. Maybe kiln-dried bricks, kiln-dried tiles, kiln-dried air. Oh, sorry, kiln-dried air. That's ridiculous. Kiln-dried wood. The telecommunications you use, all the result of research. You go to work. How do you go to work? By some form of transport. Almost certainly that transport was designed as a result of research. Even if you walk to work, the shoes you are wearing may well have modern plastics or other materials in them that were designed by science. Almost everything in today's world is as a result of scientific research. So that's why so much of our economies depend on science. Now, some Western countries invest 5% of GDP on research. Israel spends 6%. The Islamic world typically invests less than 0.5%, with many Islamic countries spending 0.1% or less. That's giving up a huge economic advantage. Remember, Israel spends 6%. I think the Islamic Renaissance could start when any Islamic country commits to increasing the percentage of GDP it spends on research by 0.1% for 50 years. And you need to take time. You need the 50 years. Why? Well, look at how scientific research returns money to the economy. Universities are the place where much research is done, perhaps most research in the country. Universities turn money into knowledge, and businesses turn knowledge into money. But it takes time for businesses and business people to learn how to exploit new knowledge. In the West, it can be 10, 20, even 30 years before an invention turns into a product that earns money. The United Kingdom now and the Western world is benefiting from having invested in research since the 16th century. We've had 400, 500 years of it. One of our best inventions was spectacles. With these, our craftsmen, our scientists and literary people could work for 10 years more than anyone else because they could see into old age. It's very hard to predict what the results of research will be, but in the long run, research returns around 10 times its cost in value to the economy, and it does that every year. Imagine, well, if you are an Islamic country that spends very little on research, 0.1% or less, some Islamic countries spend zero on research. The task of spending 1.1% sounds huge. It's a big shift in your spending. Where are you going to get the money to do this? Well, modern monetary theory says you can just invent the money. Modern monetary theory says that all of the money that is in a country is a credit, which is matched by a debit in the central bank, not a debt. Debit doesn't have to be repaid. A debit. It's an arithmetical thing. It's a mathematical invention. And the central bank can create money by giving people credit, and it can destroy money by taking money off people, cancelling their credits by taxation. Now, taxation as we have it today is an invention of the European Renaissance. Yes, everybody's back to the Stone Age was taxing each other. But the way it's done now was a result of the European Renaissance. But there's a different way of arranging tax now that we are moving to a computerized society. Already in the United Kingdom, only 12% of our transactions are done with cash. Everything else is done by computer. Now put yourself in the role of the central bank of a Muslim country. You can control the passage of money everywhere in your economy, from every person to every business via the computer. And you can tax the transaction, you can tax the spending of money, the movement of money. In the United Kingdom, it would only take a tax of 2% on the transactions of money to raise the entire amount of tax that the UK government takes. Broadly speaking, when a government spends money into the economy by creating credits for people, by creating debits on its own account, it has to recover all of that money or slightly less in tax. The slightly less is that people find it comfortable to have a little bit of inflation. People find it comfortable and very useful to have savings which come from credits the central bank put into the economy and didn't take back in tax. In the United Kingdom, we aim at 2% inflation per year. That's a policy you can have. Now, think about it. People don't like tax. But would you really mind losing 2% on every transaction? Everyone loves spending money. For some people, spending money is what money is for. Money goes round the economy faster and faster and faster because people like spending money. If you're charged just 2%, you imagine you're not being taxed. You're a happy person. You contribute to the economy. Now, there are downsides. If you're making a complicated product and buying lots of components, you're paying tax on each component. You're paying tax on the component when it's improved a little or put into an assembly. And the tax grows and grows and grows and grows. That's why value-added tax was invented, as a way of allowing companies not to pay the tax during the production process, but for the consumer to pay it at the end. So, if you adopt a computerized system of only allowing computer transactions for money and taking a small percentage in tax, you will change the whole way your economy works. I don't know if it will be better or worse. It will be different in some way. Maybe it will be good. Perhaps Islamic countries are better able to exploit this new kind of money. Perhaps Western countries are better able. There are a lot of countries in the world. Someone is going to be good at exploiting this kind of money. And each country can have its own kind of money. Now, I know that the Muslim world has its own view of how money should work. And now you can make that an actual fact in every daily transaction. You can take your policy on what money is and embed it into the computer transactions, which are the only way of transferring money in your economy. It's a new opportunity that's arising. It's an opportunity for the Muslim world, in fact, for anybody, to think about money and how it should achieve social goals, how it should be used in the economy. So, no matter how little your country spends on research, no matter how little money you have in your economy, you can create the money to increase your spending on research by 0.1%, and you can keep doing it every year for 50 years. At the end of 50 years, you have grandparents who were born during the Islamic Renaissance, you have parents who were born during the Islamic Renaissance, and you have children who were born during the Islamic Renaissance. The European Renaissance took 200 years. Doing it in 50 would be very fast. Where are you going to look for inspiration of things that you can give a rebirth to? Look back into your history, the things you were great at and would like to be even better at again. When I look at Muslim history, I see the House of Wisdom, a public library, everyone coming into that area has to give a copy of their books to the library. In fact, the library copies the book for them. People didn't have copies of books available to them. The library copies the book, builds up a huge store of knowledge, which enables scientific research and technological development. What is the equivalent of the House of Wisdom today? I think it is a library, a big physical building that contains computers that store scientific journals, books, and so on. Now, the world already does this, and part of the infrastructure is preserving that knowledge, keeping it alive. And that's done by making copies of the databases and spreading them around the world. Most of those databases are in North America. If an asteroid vaporizes North America, we lose most of our scientific research. If a Muslim country, if a country anywhere outside North America agrees to make a copy of those databases, they will get instant respect from the scientific community. No matter how much money you've got, you don't need a lot of money to set up a computer center with a big database. It's not a lot of money in terms of the amount of money countries have. In order to do that, you will have to negotiate with the people who currently have the databases, and that makes you part of the world's scientific community. And you will gain respect just because of the geographical location where you hold the databases. In the United Kingdom, we have the British Library. We have electronic copies of databases. Accessing those databases would break the usual copyright laws, but the British Library has arranged that it's legal for anyone who's physically present in the library to read those materials. You could do the same. You could negotiate access to all of the information you are storing. You could gain access to a large part of the world's scientific research without having spent anything on producing it. It will cost you. It will cost you money and buildings and people and time to support the databases. And then you can use that knowledge to build up your own scientific research and technology. Let's look back in history. What is the Islamic world famous for? It's famous for algebra. You gave the world algebra, the basis of modern science. Now, there is a problem with the way that the West does mathematics. And it's to do with the relationship between informal proof and formal proof. Informal proof is a mathematician has a good idea, jots down a few notes, and publishes the results. A formal proof is where you go through all of the steps in proving it correct. Now, for a human being, it takes 40 times as much time to produce the formal proof as the informal one. If a mathematician is working formally, they can do 1 year of work and 39 years of proof. In a human lifetime, they will only do 1 year of mathematical research. Most mathematicians, of course, do informal work and publish it informally. Now, when you look at the mathematics published in mathematical journals, and you test that mathematics in a computer proof system, you find that 20% of it is entirely correct, but 80% of it has an error of some kind, maybe a little typo, all the way through to something that destroys the mathematical results the paper is about. So only 1/5 of papers are correct, 4/5 are wrong to some extent. If we are looking at those ratios over 40 years, it means you get 10 years of, oh God, I've done this wrong, haven't I? You get a few years of correct results and a lot of years of incorrect results. The way to correct that is to use computer proof. This is already done in the West. But an Islamic country could make computer proof one of the central research goals of their research programs. you could teach computer proof in schools. You only need a phone or an iPad or some kind of tablet. You would then have digital natives who are used to using machine proof. And that would make your mathematicians 40 times more productive than the mathematicians in the West. That's huge. That is a vast opportunity for you. Why would the Islamic world do it? Because you want to. You are famous for inventing algebra. You could be famous for advancing, for adopting computer algebra. It fits with the Arab psyche, it fits with the Islamic society, psyche. But it's not for me to say what you should do. Identify your own research goals and pursue those. Now, the Islamic world plays very little part, well, in research, but it plays very little part in big science. There is an opportunity here at the level of a country to build big research instruments, maybe telescopes. Uh, the Islamic world is quite good at telescopes. The Arab world is quite good at telescopes, but you don't have much in the way of research grade telescopes. If you were to get together and build a big telescope, there is a huge advantage to you. When Western countries build huge telescopes, they negotiate that the people who built it, can use all of the information for half a year or a year before anyone else gets it. That gives your scientists the time to do the research that makes new discoveries, that wins a Nobel Prize before anybody else gets to look at the research. Have you ever wondered why the West gets so many of the Nobel Prizes? It's because we've arranged our whole scientific research and development processes to give ourselves an advantage. You could do the same. If you are to arrange science on a national basis, you need some kind of research council. There are lots of research councils in the world. You might talk to the European Research Council. They will treat you fairly. They will help you set up research. You can do joint research. Any country can arrange joint research with the European Research Council. Parts of the Islamic world are close to China. You could talk to the Chinese Academy of Sciences. The reason you are talking to them is to gain insight on how to set up your own research councils, how to make your existing research councils work better. You're talking to them to set up joint research. China produces more scientific papers than any other country, more than the United States, by a long way. By talking to the research councils, you put yourself on the map of serious scientific countries. You will gain respect because you are talking to the research councils. I think the key to the Islamic Renaissance, I see lots of steps that are going on in the Islamic world that could turn out into a Renaissance in any case. The key, I think, is committing 0.1% of GDP to scientific research every year for 50 years and making it your goal. Now, one way to make it a goal for the entire country is to offer prizes. Prizes are particularly valuable if your country spends very little on research. Prizes are the most economically effective way of promoting research. Imagine a peace prize. At the moment, the Nobel Committee in Norway allocates the Peace Prize. Norway doesn't need peace prizes. The most terrible thing that can happen in Norway is that your corner shop runs out of milk chocolate. Norway really doesn't need peace prizes. The Arab world needs peace prizes. The Islamic world needs peace prizes. If you make a peace prize and you award it to someone who's done something to bring about peace, they must have been in a good position to bring about peace, and you encourage them to do more. In order to award the prize, you have to have a committee that thinks about peace and thinks about how people bring about peace, talks to other countries about how peace is achieved. There are, in many countries, institutions of peace studies. There is scientific research, social research in how to bring about peace. That committee becomes your experts on peace. Yes, politicians deal with this all of the time, but it gives a foundation of scientific engagement in peace. So there are advantages in giving a peace prize to the person who wins it. You encourage them to do more peace. There are advantages to the committee that awards it. You learn more about peace. You learn more about what your politicians and other people are doing to bring about peace. And if you advertise this peace prize every year, your whole country is reading about it in the newspapers, seeing it on television and radio, on social media. Everyone is thinking about peace for part of the year. There are lots of other prizes you could award. Choose whatever fits your economic and scientific goals. In order to bring about a Renaissance, everyone, a lot of people, have to have the idea that they want a Renaissance. In the European Renaissance, we had Renaissance men, people who thought of themselves as part of the Renaissance, who learned about science and history and languages and art and all of the things that were going on in the Renaissance. They felt a part of the Renaissance, and the same could happen in the Islamic world. You could regard yourselves, each person could think of themselves as part of the Renaissance, a Renaissance man, a Renaissance woman. If I understand Islamic culture correctly, you already have a term for this. It's the jihad of the pen. It's the struggle for wisdom. That's what you need to bring about an Islamic Renaissance that surpasses the West to everyone's benefit. If you do better than us, we will copy you. Now, if you've enjoyed this discussion, then leave a comment and press the thumbs up button. If you'd like to learn more about transmathematics, then subscribe. My channel is mostly about transmathematics. I have a view on how mathematics itself could be improved. Or to subscribe, press the round blue and white disc that's on the screen now. Be totally brilliant and subscribe to Transmathematica for more.